first question is, what is different about leading schools during a pandemic as opposed to normal times? Dr. Madden, can we please begin with you?
Oh, okay, excellent. Thanks for that. And what a good question to open up the conversation this afternoon. Because, we're all talking about leading schools and trying to make some progress around that. But let me just sort of unpack my thoughts around this particular question. Leadership, is all about influence. As a school principal, I'm here to help my community and to work towards the vision. And every school has its own vision, and that's what the community there thinks is important, and they develop that accordingly. My role, is to help implement strategic endeavours right across the countryside, to get us towards that vision. Now, that's really important. And when we focus on what the school principal or the school leader does, then we can, discern, what's different about working in times of the pandemic as opposed to not. Now, I believe that there are some key aspects of what the role of the school principal is all about. I think, they need to lead the strategic direction of the school. The principal develops curricula. They assess teaching. They monitor student achievement. They foster parental engagement. Focus on and support the development of policies and procedures in the school. They look at budgets and they obviously manage the facilities of the school building and surrounds accordingly. Now, in order for the school leaders to do that, they need to be able to cultivate the leadership in others around them. Whether it be in the classroom level, at the middle leadership level, whether that be the students themselves, aspiring leaders within the staff, the parental groups and such. But the whole idea is to mobilise. Another key aspect of achieving the role of the principal is about building relationships and ensuring that there's tight cohesion around the school. Sometimes the way the principal has to operate is that they need to provide a bit of a balance and praise across the school as you try and lead the operations on a day-to-day basis. In order to fulfil the role, you need to be fair and consistent, and I suppose you've got to be well organised and well prepared. In order to achieve the goals and the aspects that the principal has to do on a day-to-day basis, the principal needs to be a really good listener to what's happening around them and to the people that they're engaged with. And I suppose the final thing, in order to achieve the role of the school leader, is to be fairly visionary in their approach, so that they can keep their eyes on where they're heading and help, as I said earlier, to help influence the community to get towards that vision. Now, why is that all important? Because I don't believe there is a great difference between leading a school in a non-pandemic era or during a pandemic itself. I think the real aspect is around how you manage the day-to-day operations. And I think the difference really isn't about managing risk. When you have a time of non-pandemic and the day-to-day life is in progress, you're working through strategic plans, you're developing your curricula, you're walking through classrooms, working with teachers and such. And it's nice and calm approach. But during a pandemic time, when there's unknown, you've got to be able to manage the risk, to understand what's happening around you. And so there's a slight change in your approach. Normal time, prior to pandemic, you make conscious decisions on a day-to-day basis. These decisions are often measured and well thought out, given time to, to reflect and work through. During a pandemic time, the leader has to act very decisively, often very quickly, and without a lot of notice. They've got to sum up situations very quickly and calmly, but then they've got to carry that forward into giving some action, often very quickly. Particularly when information from outside agencies and authorities come to you, sometimes in an untimely fashion. You need to be able to react fairly quickly. Before non-pandemic times, the communication process is very structured and very organised. Regular processes are in place. People are very used to, the habits of the school leader in terms of providing information and communicating to the community and such. During a pandemic period of time, the communication has to become more prolific. People need confidence and reassurance, almost on a moment by moment basis. And so the school leader has to, alter and adapt their communication practices. Communication needs to also be very, very clear and very precise, and that sort of helps, support the development of the action plans that you put into place, that you practiced and worked on during non-pandemic times and implemented during that process. I think another key aspect is that during a non-pandemic period of time, where you've got your strategic plans in place, you've got your action plans, you're working through them methodically and systematically. During pandemic times, the priority management process can be a bit skew as you address activities and events on a very fast basis, and you need to change your approach to managing those priorities. The delegation of tasks could be a little bit different. Once you have your task force and your practices, whether they be evacuation plans, lockdown drills, all sorts of activities in preparing for a crisis or a pandemic period. When you get into that in action, you need to work on the delegation of tasks, and you need good people around you to ensure that those tasks are put into place and acted on fairly quickly. And I suppose the final thing is around about the empowerment of people. While during pandemics there's a lot of uncertainty, we're not quite sure, interpretation of guidelines is often a bit clouded, but you need to ensure as a leader of the school that you give people opportunity to grow and to move forward, and you empower them to take their roles and responsibilities, and you develop that the camaraderie accordingly. So I think that just in summary, my viewpoint around leading schools during the pandemic is that the leader often comes out during the crisis period of time, but their leadership practices they don't vary a great deal, but they just modify and align to the tasks that are provided to them. So that's just a few quick thoughts on that. So, but I do appreciate the question, Darryl.